If you're a landlord or property manager in California, you already know that one law, AB 1482, has totally changed the game. Sticking to the old way of doing things isn't just a bad idea. It can cost you, big time. So today, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know to stay compliant and protect your investment.
So let's just start with the big question right out of the gate. Are you at 100% certain your properties are compliant? Because, let's be honest, what used to be standard practice could now land you in some serious legal hot water. And the stakes here are really, really high. We're talking about a single tiny oversight, maybe a missing sentence in a lease or a small math error on a rent increase that can make your legal notices completely worthless. That's how you end up in a long, expensive legal fight. Let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. First up, let's talk about the part everyone watches closely, the money. AB 1482 put a statewide limit on how much you can raise the rent each year. Okay. So the foundation of the rent cap formula is a base rate of 5%. That's always your starting point. Then you add the local inflation rate to that 5%. The official term for this is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Now, this number changes all the time, so you have to look up the correct percentage for your specific area every single time you're planning an increase.
And here's the most important part of the formula. No matter what, the total increase can never, ever be more than 10% in any 12-month period. So it's 5% plus the CPI or 10%. You have to use whichever one is lower. And just so we're crystal clear, the CPI isn't some national average. It's very specific to your property's region. You get it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so you've always got to make sure you're using the current local number for your calculations. Now, here is a super important distinction. These rent caps, they only apply to an existing tenancy. The moment a tenant moves out and the unit is vacant, you can reset the rent to whatever the current market rate is for that next new tenant. Then, of course, the cap will apply to that new baseline for them going forward. Okay, let's move on to the second giant pillar of AB 1482, just cause eviction. Basically, once a tenant has lived in your property for a full year, you can't just decide to end their tenancy anymore. You have to have a legally valid reason. The law breaks these reasons down into two buckets. The first is at fault, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. The tenant did something wrong, like not paying rent or violating the lease. The second is no fault, and this is for when the landlord needs the property back for a specific reason, like they're going to move in themselves or take the unit off the market entirely. Now, if you are moving forward with a no-fault termination, there's a big extra step you cannot forget. You are required by law to provide the tenant with relocation assistance. You get two options here. Either you can give them a direct payment equal to 1 month of their rent, or you can just waive their final month's rent. The choice is yours. And I really have to stress this. This is not optional. It's not a suggestion. If you fail to provide this assistance, your notice of termination is legally void. It's like it never happened, and you have to start the entire process all over again from the very beginning. Okay, I know after hearing all of those rules, this is the section you've probably been waiting for. The good news is not every single property in California is covered by AB 1482. So let's see if yours might be one of the lucky ones. This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Figuring out if your specific rental falls under these rent cap and just cause rules is, without a doubt, the number one thing you need to do. So let's just run through the most common exemptions. Brand new housing, anything built in the last 15 years is exempt. A duplex is also exempt if you, the owner, live in one of the units. But the biggest one for most small landlords is the exemption for single-family homes and condos, but there's a catch. They can't be owned by a corporation or a real estate investment trust. Okay, everybody lean in for this one because this is probably the biggest mistake I see landlords make. If you want to claim that single-family home or condo exemption, you absolutely must have this specific word-for-word legal notice in your rental agreement. If that exact language is not in your lease, then your property is not exempt. You're subject to the whole law. This is totally non-negotiable. And just when you think you've got it all figured out, there's one more layer of complexity you have to deal with. Your local city and county rules. Here's the simple rule of thumb. Think of AB 1482 as setting the floor for tenant protections, not the ceiling. If your property is in a city with its own stricter rent control laws, think places like LA, San Francisco, Oakland, then the local law wins. Whichever law is more protective of the tenant is the one that you have to follow. Phew, okay, I know we have covered a lot of ground. So let's try to boil this all down into a simple,
actionable checklist you can use for every single one of your properties. All right, here's your 5-step plan. Step 1, first things first, figure out your property's exemption status. Step 2, if you are exempt, for goodness sake, double and triple check that the exact legal notice is in your lease. Step 3, if you're not exempt, you've got to track that local CPI before you even think about a rent increase. Step 4, stick to the just cause rules like glue, and that includes the relocation money. And finally, step 5, and this might be the most important, always check your local city laws first. So all this brings us to a final big picture question. This law is actually set to expire in 2030. As a state's housing market keeps changing and evolving, you have to wonder, how will this law change with it? Will we see its protections and exemptions debated, tweaked, or maybe even replaced entirely? It's definitely a space we'll all need to keep watching.